This COVID-19 pandemic has been deeply affecting our daily lives. Our home life and work life took an interesting turn. This unusual event has caused many feelings such as depression, anxiety, frustration, stress, anger, so on and so forth. I'm here to talk to you about effective daily habits to manage anxiety and depression during this pandemic and post-pandemic. Let's dive in. Our environmental change impact the state of our well-being, and both mentally and physically. And due to COVID-19, this pandemic, this social distancing has been necessary. And however, it kind of makes us feel isolated, lonely, and stressed. And we are inherently social beings, and we regulate our feelings through healthy amount of social interactions. However, these social coping skills are not readily available now. And in this uncertain time, it's normal to have fear of uncertainty, unknown. My question is, how do you deal with or tolerate this uncertainty? When things are uncertain, it's very natural to feel a certain way. We can feel anxious, we can feel fearful, we can feel frustrated. Human minds are designed to problem solve or process information when we feel certain way inside. However, when we are receiving a lot of information through news, society, work, or school, pretty much everywhere, it's scary to bear this overwhelming amount of uncertain information. As for self-protection, it's essential to sort out this uncertain information so that we can feel sort of a sense of safety and control. And now we're getting to how-tos. So there's a psychological concept called Locus of Control. It's about our beliefs or perception over outcomes. The Zimbardo, a psychologist who developed this concept, said a locus of control orientation is a belief about whether the outcomes of our actions are contingent on what we do or events outside our personal control. In other words, we maintain or lose a sense of control depending on what we pay attention to. There are two types of locus of control. The first one is the external locus of control. The people with external locus of control believe that their success or failure are determined by external factors such as luck, fate, other people's influence, circumstances, and so on. I believe that at times that we blame our teacher for poor grades, right? The external locus of control is not all bad. So how do we use our locus of control to our advantage? Here's the first habit I like to engage in. During this pandemic, we often find ourselves overindulged in reading or listening to news or spending too much on social media. And this creates too much exposure to too much uncertain information. And it's important to know what's happening in the world. However, we lose our control when we spend too much energy and time on uncertain information. So it's important to notice what's happening and notice what's happening inside. So when we lose control, what is it like to gain that control again? What is it that you want to pay attention to? It's essential to allow yourself to take a break from uncertain information and shift towards maybe the certain information externally. Because the question is, where do we find a certain information externally? Certainty is a very subjective concept. I suggest you find a certainty here and now. That's sort of the things that I like to pay attention to. If I pay attention to news and hoping that news will say the pandemic will go away tomorrow, because that's sort of the certainty I want to have, but how likely I will have that certainty. One way to know that you're here and now is through your body. Body is something that I mentioned previously many times in my videos, because body is sort of the powerhouse of all my feelings, all my thoughts, all my perception. So we cannot ignore this mind-body connection. Let's say I'm reading a news on my phone. What if I turn my head away? To give you a better idea, here's one example. What if I'm reading a news on my cell phone, and I'm reading it and spend a couple hours? What if I turn my head slowly away from my cell phone? What would happen to my feelings? What would happen inside? And as I'm turning away from my cell phone, maybe I'll look outside the window. Maybe I will see what's out there. Maybe I'll see people walking by, I see cars, birds, sky, sun. What would happen if I'm noticing that? I'm curious what that means. So would it be okay to maybe pause the video, take a moment to look around you, and see what happened inside? So take your time here. Even if it's a little bit of comfort or calmness that you're feeling, I'm not asking for drastic change, just a little bit of a shift towards something else that feels sort of a release of that anxiety or stress. Shifting our attention or energy is an important concept because it kind of creates a space for more awareness, and this can be done through just regular activities such as taking a deep breath, stretching or drinking tea, standing up, laying down, talking to your friends, so on and so forth. I like to call this activity sort of a mindful behavior. I like to repeat mindful behaviors. How do you mindfully noticing your behaviors through your body? How do you sense that? How do you feel that? I will highly encourage you to limit your exposure to uncertain information and scan what is here and now. When we implement a new habit, it is good to have a tracking system. So writing things down is a good reminder for us. I suggest that you make a list of mindful behaviors that you can engage on a daily basis. Here's a list of things that I encourage to, write it down so that you can, keep track of what you're doing. Mindful behaviors on a daily basis, the situation that you can use, and how effective emotional regulation is after engaging that mindful behavior on a scale of 0 to 10. Let's practice together. Here's a table that I created to track mindful behaviors, situation, the scale of assessing the emotional regulation. For example, mindful behavior is I like to take a walk. And the situation that I like to engage in this mindful walk is every 4 hours that I work. After taking a walk, I normally scan my body and I notice less brain fog, I notice deeper breathing and less tension around my back. I rate this level of emotional regulation at about 3 to 4. And I rate this level of emotional regulation at about 6. I hope that's simple enough, and it's a matter of creating a brief time and space for your self-care. Habits are something that we want to kind of repeat over and over so that whatever behaviors that you want to engage, it becomes sort of a natural pattern. Later, you don't have to track it because your body knows when to engage in that mindful behavior. We cannot control all the external experience, but what external condition you want to provide to yourself so that you can begin to look at what's happening inside. In our next video, we're going to talk about habits to reinforce and cultivate the internal locus control. So take care of yourself and do your healing every day.